So today I'm excited because we are beginning a new series, as you've heard. And that series is titled what? Quit. How many of you are, as Reverend Norton said, like really curious about where this is going? Quit is a principle of success, as we'll be talking about it over these next 4 weeks. Quit is a principle of success that has been put forth by one of my writing partners. He is also known as the Quit Doctor, and he is the CFO of Christ Universal Temple, but he's incredibly talented and gifted. I'm blessed to have him on my team, Dr. Stanley Robertson. And so this concept is coming from a new work that he has out. It won't be out until next year, but the work has the same title, and the title is Quit. But I imagine that for many of us, the idea of quitting carries with it many negative connotations. How many of you think something negative when you think the word quit? All right, sorry, that's good, that's fair. So how many of you of my type A goal-oriented folks squirm every time you hear me say quit? No. Especially if you've heard me say that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Or if you've heard me say when you're wrestling a gorilla, you don't stop when you're tired, you stop when the gorilla is tired. Right? But what I want us to do during this series is just look at quit from perhaps just a different lens. Because if I were to just take a quick quit quiz, I would imagine that I am in a room full of quitters. You up for the quiz? By show of hands, how many of you attended a different church before you came to this church? If you left that church and came to this church, you did what? How many of you, as a lifestyle change, decided to give up eating certain things or drinking certain things in order to perhaps improve the quality of your life? By show of hands. If you gave up eating certain things and drinking certain things, you in essence did what? How many of you, by show of hands, left one job and went to a new job or started a new business once you left your old job? So if you left your old job and you went to a new job or you started a new business, as a matter of fact, you did what? Mm-hmm. See, quitting doesn't seem as rare as you might have imagined earlier on. I am someone who left full-time marketplace to come and do full-time ministry. In essence, what I did was I quit full-time marketplace so I could just keep it 1,000 with you, took a pay cut to come and do full-time ministry. So in many ways, I am a quitter. How many of you have invested effort in trying to stay in relationships with friends only to find that the people you were trying to stay in relationship with weren't as invested in maintaining the relationship as you were? So how many of you gave up on those relationships? When you gave up on those relationships, you did what? You quit. So quitting, as we are presenting it in this context, is not shrouded in the negative connotations that many people have when they think about quitting. As a matter of fact, as Stanley Robertson just suggested, and as I also believe, successful people quit all the time. One of the most famous quitters that you probably are aware of is named Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey was a local television news anchor in Nashville, Tennessee, and in Baltimore before she ever became a nationally syndicated talk show host. And she didn't tell me this, but my guess is she never would have become the first African-American billionaire had she stayed broadcasting local television TV. They don't usually pay local on-air broadcast talent billions of dollars. Another famous quitter that we're all probably familiar with is Michael Jordan. He quit his first love, baseball, to focus on basketball. Then he quit an illustrious career in basketball to play minor league baseball. Talk about hustling backwards. And just as he was starting to get better playing baseball, he quit baseball to pick up his championship basketball career again. How many of you are familiar with Dwayne Johnson? Dwayne Johnson is was one of my son's favorite wrestlers. And Dwayne Johnson left the ring, and not only did he leave the ring, he also left the persona. How many of you know what his wrestling persona was? The Rock. So he left the wrestling persona of The Rock to become a full-time action movie star. He is, in essence, a quitter. How many of you know that you have some personas you need to quit on? Arnold Schwarzenegger left being an action movie star to become a governor. He quit. And so there are quitters all over the place, and I do agree that in order to be successful, there are absolutely some times that you must quit and some things that you must quit, because you cannot be who you are and who you're destined to be at the same time. We have a very good quitter in the room. This quitter worked for WGN, was a high-level executive with the company. And he got this idea to start this production company. And this production company eventually brought to us the Bud Billiken Parade and the Know Your Heritage television program. It brought to us the Stellar Awards. If Don Jackson did not quit WGN, he would have never brought forth Central City. Are you with me? And so there are tons and tons and tons of quitters throughout the ages. And so if you are a quitter, you are in good company. But just as it is important to understand the why behind you are striving for your objective, it's also important that you understand the why and the when behind your quit. Last week you saw a series where we talked about the royal family, and one of the representatives of the royal family was B.B. King. And I can hear B.B. King singing right now, "You never want to make your move." So even when it comes to quitting, you want to make sure that before you quit, you have not quit too soon. I know step one says quit quickly, but before you quit, you want to make sure that you don't make your move too soon. Are you with me? Because history has shown us that sometimes it does not happen the first time through when you are trying to do something that will catapult you to success. Are you with me? And human beings are wired and designed to make sure that we keep going. And it's important that we are wired and designed to keep going, because if you are like most people, the things that you want to do will not be accomplished easily. The first incandescent light was so dim that they needed a candle to see the socket. But I'm thankful that they didn't quit too soon. Orville and Wilbur's first flight Chester lasted only 12 seconds. But I'm glad they didn't quit too soon. The first steamboat took 36 hours to go from New York to Albany. That's a distance of 150 miles. I'm glad they didn't quit too soon. And the first car only traveled about 2 to 4 miles per hour. And it broke down often. And people who were riding in carriages would come by and say, get that hunk of metal off the road and get yourself some horses. But I have a car, and I'm glad they didn't quit too soon. Are you with me? So perseverance is important. Put this in your notes. Perseverance is important. The problem is that determination can be detrimental when it keeps us from moving on and focusing on new goals, especially when the why and when behind why we would quit has been exceeded. So maybe the major difference between the people who are very successful at quitting is that they found something else to redirect their attention to after they quit. See, when successful people quit a goal, quit a job, or quit a relationship that is no longer working, somebody say no longer working. When successful people quit a goal, a job, or a relationship that is no longer working, they do extremely well at refocusing their energy. See, for many of us, we are frustrated because we're trying to make something work that we already know is not going to pay dividends. But because of how we were conditioned, or because of what we believe, or because of what we've been taught, we're trying to stick to it when what we're trying to stick to has been over for a long time now. And so I want to share some things with you this morning to just shed a little bit of light on this idea of quitting. And if you decide that quitting is for you, I want you to leave with 3 things. I want you to leave knowing how to give up the effort, give up the commitment, and give up the guilt. Is that okay? And so let's start here. Because goal disengagement, someone say goal disengagement. Don't get tired on me. Someone say goal disengagement. Goal disengagement is an important life skill for those who want to be happier and more satisfied with the decisions that they're making. See, you've heard me say this before. When it comes to the decisions that you make, each and every one of your decisions is channeled in 3 ways. You decide what you will focus on, you decide what you make things mean, and you decide what you will do next. And if I am stuck focusing on something that is not improving my experience, if I am stuck making meaning and reframing meaning and making stuff mean stuff that it really doesn't mean, like there's an example that he gives in the book where he talks about people who go to the boat. No shade. And actually, this is Dr. Robertson. I'm taking this directly from the book, so this is him. The example that he makes, he says, when people go to the boat and they lose, they reframe that to say, rather than saying, I lost, they say, I almost won. Right? So I might have lost $50, but I could reframe it and say, I almost won $100. So the meaning that we ascribe or subscribe to a particular thing will absolutely influence our behavior as we go forward. So as a professional, successful quitter, I want to get you to not shade what it is you're working through. See, one of the best ways to get the most out of your quitting is to be transparent about what it is the thing is. Don't fake it to yourself. Are you with me? And so goal disengagement can get us stuck and allow us to move once we realize that we are no longer going to where it is we thought we were once going. Let me say it to you this way. "50% of people who stand with another person says to that person, I do. But 50% of those relationships end in I don't. Why? Because something happens along the way that moves from I do to I don't any longer. Now, if we are not clear about the why and the when, we will spend a lifetime trying to fix what already we both know we don't. Are you with me? And so we do it in that area of our lives, and we do it in many areas of our lives, because really how you do one thing is how you do most things. So when it comes to quitting, one of the questions I want you to ask yourself is this. Put this in your notes. Are there areas in my life where I've left incomplete goals and unfinished projects? Are there areas in my life where I've left incomplete goals and unfinished projects? Why is it important to ask and answer that question? It's important to ask and answer that question because if you don't complete the past, you're never really able to fully embrace your present and create your future. You have to finish a thing, and if you don't finish a thing, the thing that is left unfinished constantly draws energy from you. Every time you leave a pile of laundry unfolded in the laundry room, each and every time you walk past that unfolded pile of laundry, it steals some energy from you because you know, if nobody else knows, that that is something you were supposed to complete. Each and every time you say to yourself, I'm going to clean out the garage. Every time, get off your husband. This is a no male bashing zone, and this is a no female bashing zone. You worry about your own self quitting. Leave his stuff alone. He gonna get to it, especially after this series. And you tell him I said that. You all are funny. Don't let me get off. Don't let me get off. But just this is an aside. Say this is an aside. Because you all interpret stuff differently. One Sunday, one of my good members brought her family member right down here after service. And she said, Reverend Wells told me to knock your head off if you do that thing again. I said, I didn't tell you to do that. They trying to get me to co-sign that nonsense. So what was I saying? I was saying every time we leave a goal undone, every time we leave a project incomplete, it robs us of valuable energy. It robs us of valuable focus units. And you know as I do that where your focus goes, your power flows. And so you don't have enough time, energy, or effort to leave things that you know you're not going to get back to undone. If you know it's over, own that it's over. Are you with me? Now, the problem for most people is that even though we recognize we need to change, most people won't quit or change even when they know they should. I don't want you to be those people. I want you to be the oak tree that is okay with quitting being an acorn. I want you to be the butterfly that is okay to quit being a caterpillar. Are you with me? So how do we quit? How do we quit? The very first thing you have to do is you have to give up the effort. Put that in your notes. Give up the effort. Give up the effort. Give up the effort. Why is it important that you give up the effort? Consciously and intentionally. Because again, every time you say that you are going to do something, the creative capacity, creative power within you begins to move in such a way as to help you accomplish it. Now, when you give up the effort, or when you do what you say you're going to do, or when you don't do it at all, you still set the expectation, but your actions don't rise to the level of your expectation. And when your actions don't rise to the level of your expectation because you are powerful, one of the first things you begin to do is question whether or not you are worthy of what it is you say you want. So it's not simply a matter of not doing it. Not doing it impacts your sense of self-worth. So what am I saying? I'm saying if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to put in the effort, then just go ahead and say you're done with it. So I can't say I want a better marriage, but withdraw the effort. I can't say I intend to have better health and still eat recklessly and not work out. I can't say I want a promotion on the job and my output is the same as it has been for the last 10 years. If you're not going to produce the effort, then you have to reduce the effort. And so Dr. Robinson says that there are some adverse consequences. Write that in your notes. There are some adverse consequences to not quitting. He says some of the adverse consequences that are tied to reducing our effort without having a big picture focus is that we experience frustration, we experience guilt, we experience loss of energy, we begin questioning regarding our integrity, we begin to have doubts about our deservedness, we begin to have wounds in our sense of self-worth. And why do that to yourself? Are you still with me? Whenever you establish a goal or begin a project, your subconscious mind begins to take up focus units because your subconscious mind does not know that you're not serious. Your subconscious mind believes that the decisions you have made with great purpose. And so your subconscious mind begins to go and call forth the experiences, my God. But when your subconscious calls forth an experience that you're not prepared for, then what happens? And so you've got to do three things. You've got to do three things in order to give up the effort. You have to give yourself permission. You have to give yourself a new belief. And you got to give yourself a new direction. You have to give yourself permission. You have to give yourself a new belief. And you've got to give yourself a new direction. When I was in high school, I was excited about one of my first jobs. Because my goal while I was in high school is just get some money in my pockets. See, the girls at my high school didn't really go for guys who didn't have no money in their pockets. And don't tell my mama this, but I made it through high school because that's where the girls were. Can I keep it 1,000? That's why I went, Doc. That's where the girls were. And it happened that I also learned. Right? But while I was in high school, I got one of my first jobs. And while my primary goal for this job was so that I could have money to show up in a way that would make me more appealing. And so I would travel every day from 68th and Western, 5 days a week from 68th and Western to Western and Toohey, nearly an hour and a half, to Baker Square. And I was a busser. I would clean tables. And I, on my very first day, got excited about this new job because what I learned that I didn't realize was that the people in the restaurant would leave money for you if you cleaned their table. And so in my first 45 minutes to an hour, I think I had probably like $60, $70 in my pocket. And I'm like, I have hit a lick. I don't know why nobody ever told me about this busboy thing again. I'm about to get paid. And then the manager came over to me. And he said, the waitresses have been saying that you're taking the money off the tables. Like, yeah, I took it. It was right there, right? He's like, do you know which tables you got the money from? I'm like, yeah, I got $7 from that table and $3 from this table and $1.50 from that table and $10 from this table and $2.45 from that table and $8 from that table. He said, so the way this works is the waitresses give you a percentage of what they make at the end of the day based upon how well you clean their tables. Now, my first hour, I was on fire. In my second hour, the bus pail immediately got heavier. And my back started to hurt more. And the heavier the bus pail got, the more my back hurt. And the more my back hurt, the more I slowed down. And the more I slowed down, the fewer tables I cleaned. So when I was accomplishing my goal, my effort was high. But when I was only getting a small percentage, my effort went down. Went down so much until Mr. Ali came to me and said, we're going to quit you. Now, they fired me from that nice job. I was not a good busboy. Once I was no longer making $70 an hour. Are you with me? Are you with me? Right? So I'm wanting to illustrate how important or how often our effort is attached to the degree to which we are accomplishing the goal. See, once it was more difficult for me to reach the goal, my effort just naturally plummeted. To the place where when he fired me, I cried, but I didn't want the job anyway. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to be willing to give yourself permission. You've got to be willing to give yourself a new belief, and then you have to give yourself a new direction. And we've even seen Jesus call some people to quit. When Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon Peter and his brother Andrew, and they were in the boat fishing, and Jesus said to them, come on, let me make you fisher of men. Then he saw James and John, and he said to them, come on, let me make you fisher of men, because sometimes that which you are called to quit and then what you are called to redirect and do is greater than what you're doing in the moment. And so you've got to be willing to quit the lesser for the greater. Are you with me? The second thing that quitting requires of you, it requires you to give up the commitment. Give up the commitment. Someone say, give up the commitment. Now, giving up the commitment is a little different than giving up the effort. See, when a goal appears to be less attainable, it can be easier for us to give up the effort. But giving up the commitment requires a little bit more of us. And so it's not true that the regard by which we give up the effort is also met when we give up the commitment. So the withdrawal of commitment occurs with greater difficulty. Giving up the commitment requires more of us. See, giving up the commitment means that not only do I have to stop the action, but I also have to rewire myself. In order to give up the commitment, put this in your notes, you have to give up the level of importance that you attach to the thing. In order to give up the commitment, you have to reattach or give up the level of importance that you've attached to the thing. How many of you know that you never really decide to pursue an objective unless you find it important? You never really say I do unless you intend to stay married. Most people. Most people. I've done enough counseling sessions to know that in the counseling session, they're serious. It's when the difficulty comes that the sense of importance and the sense of seriousness starts to impact what they'll do. So you have to be willing to give up the importance to the thing. How do you give up importance? You find new meaning. Reverend Boyd on yesterday talked about reframing. Earlier, I talked about reframing. See, if you can accept for yourself that saying, I am going to quit this so I can do that, it can help you quit it and not feel the same way about it. As I said to you, I had a very successful career in the marketplace. I was able to provide a wonderful life for my family. We did good. We built a beautiful house. We did good. But Judge, I found a higher call. I found something that was not only something for me to do, it was something that indicated what I was about and what I was here for. See, sometimes you have to give up what you consider to be important to take on what you consider to be urgent. There is a pressing need in each and every one of us, and if you will tap into that pressing creative need, if you will redirect what you think is important, you will find that what was once important is no longer important if you change the way you see it. Are you with me? So not only do you have to give up the level of importance, you also have to give up the bond. You have to remake the ties that bind. One of the negative psychological impacts of not giving up the commitment is that it, again, creates a state of resignation in us that affects our ability to believe that we are able. See, sometimes if we don't give up the commitment, not giving up the commitment can cause us to believe that we are not up to the thing that we say we want to do. And whenever you have something that it is you want to do, and the longer it takes for that thing to come to pass, the more your heart aches because that which you desire is not being expressed. That's why many leaders never present their vision. Their vision dies in their heart before they ever present it to the people. See, if you've led long enough, you've probably had enough wounds and lost enough battles and had enough difficulties that it has started to impact your heart. Scripture says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so you've got to find the ability to tap into something that says, if this is not going to happen, what does it mean to me? If this is not who I am, who am I? You've got to be able to remake the bond for the goal that you established. Because it means something to you. Are you with me? You got to reestablish the bond. And then you got to, number 3, you've got to redirect those focus units. You've got to redirect those focus units. See, every time you notice your goal, every time you think about your objective, every time you consider the project, and when it's not where you want it to be and you wish it were different, every time you do that, it pulls life from you. But here is something I want you to know about the goals that you set. They ought to inspire you, not expire you. What am I saying? I'm saying if it's taking life from you. I'm saying if the goal is corrupting your sense of self-worth. I'm saying if the relationship is causing you to think that you are not worthy of love. I'm saying if the objective is making you see yourself in a different light then maybe it's not your self-worth, but the goal that is not worth it. Because it's not always going to be like you think it should be. See, sometimes when the thing is wrong, God says no. And sometimes when the time is wrong, God says slow. But then sometimes when I am wrong, God says grow. But when the thing is right and the time is right and I am right, then God says go. Are you with me? So the last piece I need you to give up is the guilt. Because guilt is a waste of your creative energy. It's a waste of your creative capacity. Here is why I want you to give up the guilt. Here is why I think you should give up the guilt. Because sometimes we see things, and the fact that we see them does not mean that we're going to be able to do them. When we were younger, me and my partners would go to the Met, and we would watch the Bruce Lee conflicts. And after every flick, I left the movie wanting to be more and more like Bruce Lee. It's one of the few times in my life I wanted to be Blasian. It's black and Asian. Y'all like, what's that? What's that? What's that? But what I realized was that no matter how often I did the kicks, and no matter how many times I practiced with the nunchucks, and even though I ordered the star and the Enter the Dragon black striped suit, there was no amount of practice or skill that was going to give me the ability to perform like Master Lee. Ooh. And so I just had to accept that was not going to be for me, and I had to do it without guilt. Not long ago when we were at continuing ed, there was a practice exercise that the ministers and teachers went through. And during this exercise, come on, we're going to close with this. During this exercise, they asked each individual who was present to look at this possibility and tell us how you see the possibility. And almost to a woman and man, most of us put where we saw the possibility in one of two areas. But the most powerful thing about the exercise for me was not necessarily where we saw the possibilities, but the handle they put on the exercise. Here is what they told us to do with that exercise. They asked us to face the facts, but hold the truth. And so when it comes to your ability and your capacity to quit, here's what I want to ask you to do. I want to ask you to face the facts and hold the truth. Because the fact may be that even though you have faith, you don't have the skill. And you might be able to develop the skill. But once you have developed the skill, you might be in a different season of your life. And so you may find yourself improving in an area of weakness rather than focusing on your God-given strength. But my sense is that if you will quit what does not serve you and pick up what you're strong in, you can make a greater impact in your world, in your life, in your family, in your relationships, in your finances. But you have to be willing to face the facts and hold the truth. And the truth is that with God, all things are possible. Yeah. No, don't clap too soon, because the fact is, God can only do for you what he can do through you. Now clap. And so, as we enter into this series, I want you to be okay with quitting. Because many a successful person right in this room, right next to you, they've already quit. And they've come out on the other side better. And so if you intend to be better, I want to invite you to just go ahead and own up and be a quitter. God bless you.